Hi guys, thank you for joining us, and we're talking all about PhD, but before we start, tell us a little bit about where you're from, and maybe you can add what your PhD is all about.
Definitely.
Who wants to go first?
Thank you. My name is Natalia and I am originally from Mexico. I'm doing my third year of my PhD, and I'm working on studying this two-dimensional material called vaccines for developing electrochemical biosensors so we can diagnose and monitor diseases.
Oh, fantastic. And Robin?
So I come from southwest Scotland, and my PhD is about heating systems for historic churches, and I'm in my last year.
Oh, so excellent. So you both have plenty of experience to share. So just, shall we go back? Robin, tell us a little bit about what made you start a PhD. What was the dream moment?
I don't think there was a particular dream I had. I did see a few PhDs advertised, and I thought they look interesting, so perhaps that's something I could go and apply for. So I chose a few, and then there was one definitely that I thought I'll apply for that one, and that's how I've ended up here.
So you always wanted to do a PhD?
Not particularly, no. It wasn't a particular focus in my life. It just seemed to come along, and I decided to do it.
Okay. And you, Natalia?
I was studying material science and engineering, my bachelor's, and by the end of it I realized that I knew many things, or little about many things, and I felt like I wanted to focus on something specifically and become more knowledgeable on something, and I started being very passionate about basically biomedical devices. So when there was this opportunity to start the PhD that I'm doing, I definitely took it.
Oh, brilliant. And can I ask both of you, is there anybody else in the family that has a PhD, or are you the first ones in your...
My uncle has a PhD. Does that count?
No, I'm just, because it's not about, some people think a PhD is a very difficult thing to do. I mean, but and people might not have it in their mind, but Robin, you seem to have just took the opportunity as it came.
I don't think there's anybody else in the family that has a PhD.
Okay, cool. And can I ask why this particular university? You know, what made you choose sort of University of Brighton to do your PhD?
I mean, for me, it was a very specific case. The lab that I was working at, I did my undergrad in Philadelphia, and the lab that I was working at has many collaborations throughout the world. And one of them was with the research group that I'm currently working at. So the biomaterials group here at Brighton University has a collaboration with Drexel University in Philadelphia. And my professor there, Professor Yuri Gotzi, knew my supervisor and worked with her already, Dr. Susan Sandeman. So there was a perfect fit for me to be working on these two-dimensional materials that I was already working with, but applied to biomedical devices, which was kind of like my goal.
Brilliant. And Robin?
So my PhD was advertised like a job, and University of Brighton is in partnership with two other universities for the funding stream that I'm funded under, and so this is the university I'm based at because that's where...
Yeah, I mean, that answers my next question, which was about how you find your supervisor. So you can either have a recommendation through networking, or in the case of a pre-advertised project, the supervisory team is already there for you. Excellent. And that's just two ways of finding a supervisor. There's plenty more. So, Robin, you told us that your PhD, is it fully funded, or is it... Okay, so you get both the fees and some stipend?
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. And you, Natalia?
Mine, I earned the scholarship for funding the full tuition throughout my PhD. And then in terms of stipend, my supervisor helped me find basically external support. And that is from Rainer, which is a company for intraocular lenses, since my work is most on ophthalmic environments.
And do you have, I mean, I'm sure that any funding you get is never enough. Do you have any tips to give of, you know, what else would you do to finance the years throughout your PhD? Any hints and tips?
I think there are plenty of scholarships out there. It just you have to spend some time looking for them, talking to people, and also you can get some demonstrating work, which there are plenty of opportunities that the university gives out to PhD students specifically, such as demonstrating or being a student ambassador or any other opportunities that doesn't really kind of takes you away from your project, but also gives you the opportunity to work even in the university, so you don't have to go anywhere.
Brilliant. And Robin?
I've kept a part-time job going throughout my PhD. Sometimes I've worked up to 18 hours a week on the side, but I have quite generous stipend, so it's just to make it easier.
Okay, just a bit of
hours.
extra.
Yes.
Excellent. I want to take you back to your first year, really, and think of the proposal and think of in your case, the project that was advertised, in your case, what you had in mind. Has your proposal, has your project changed from the original proposal much, and how?
Okay. So I had to make a proposal for the study as part of the application for the position, and that is very different from what I'm actually doing. I think it was just basically getting a better understanding of what the project was in the first year, and then it took on a better form than I'd proposed in my application.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the good thing that we have as first-year students is that we have the time to research, to read, to really get to know what you're working on and kind of define a better plan. Even though we're asked to submit a research plan, that definitely changes as you get more knowledgeable and you can more accurately decide what to focus and what is the lack of knowledge in the field. So it gets more specific. I wouldn't say it completely changes.
Well, that's good for people to know that the first year is really getting your footing and creating that theoretical framework, right? And then move on. Excellent. And still at the very beginning of your PhD, if you can sort of go back in the memory lane, if I would ask you to give me your top hints, 1, 2, 3 top hints of anyone just about to start a PhD, what would they be?
Like tips? I would say one could be trust yourself, because I feel many students, we come in starting a PhD and you already want to feel like a PhD student, but you have plenty to learn. So just feeling confident that you will get that knowledge eventually as the time progresses and as you invest more time working towards your project.
I would say don't worry too much about the time it takes you to develop the project plan. Although they suggest doing it in the first month, that might not be feasible if you've got a complex project. So just keep making better versions of it, keep running it past your supervisors, and you'll get there, and it'll work out in the end.
Brilliant, thank you. And sort of moving forward now to your third year, looking at all the years that you are doing your PhD, what would be sort of the best advice or the best hints you would give if you were to go back in time and talk to yourself? What is the best advice you can give for somebody doing a PhD?
I think for me it would be the same one, to kind of like trust what you're doing. Basically, don't be afraid to ask questions and get help from as many people as you can. Reach out to your supervisor, reach out to a different professor in the university that might be doing something that is related to your work or that can help and guide you through. So, and do not just stick to the university, also basically communicate with other universities and...
So expand your network.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And Robin?
I think a focus in the methodology has been the constant feedback I've had during my studies, that needs to be properly formatted and decided upon so that you know where you're going with your work. If you don't have proper methodology, then you're going to struggle a lot of the time with what it is you're actually trying to accomplish.
Okay. And now you guys have been through a period of very difficult scenarios with when you can meet with your supervisory team, when you cannot, and how often you can meet with other PhD students. How has this, first of all, how has the supervisory process and working with your supervisors worked for you, especially during this difficult period?
I'll go first. So I have 5 supervisors, 2 at the university, 1 at another university, and 2 external supervisors. So it's quite a complicated team to manage. During the pandemic, in some ways it was helpful to start engaging with your supervisors online, because it's much easier than getting them all round a table for a specific date and time. I've had some changes with my supervisory team. People have left and I've had a replacement supervisor, but you just work out a way to use their skills and to improve your study by speaking with them and understanding in what parts that they can help you with.
And like you said, to manage your supervisory team, which is something that a lot of students don't realize, that it's up to you to manage also.
They are a resource for you, so you should be able to have access to them and use their knowledge to benefit your study.
Yeah, and I think that shifts as well throughout your PhD, because at the beginning you're almost sitting through meetings and getting some tips and some instructions of what to do, what you're expected to do. And then as you move on with your PhD and you take on your project, it's you who bring the results and it's you who suggests the next steps, and it's mostly the feedback that you're looking for. And of course, some instructions as well, but I think it shifts it between like the first year and the third year, for example.
Excellent. Sticking sort of with the same theme of connection and connecting with others and networking, tell us, how do you, or what might be the tips of how do you keep connected with the academic community? What are the best ways of remaining connected? Natalia, you talked also about being connected both at the university but also with communities outside the university as well. So how do you achieve that?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it was very specific, as I already knew the research group. I worked for them before starting my PhD. However, especially if you're focusing your project and you basically want to keep on top of what's coming out there and the new results that are coming out and what you have to compare your data with, so you know who the experts are. And Google Scholar, for example, is a great way to, Google Scholar notifications is a good way to keep up with that learning. And then, of course, conferences are a different way to also connect with people, connect with academics, and I think asking questions during presentations of other students or poster presentations is a great way also to keep connected with the community that is in your field.
Robin? I would say you do have to push yourself maybe outside your comfort zone to get involved in conferences and presentations and other events at the university, so that you do have the opportunity to speak to people. You can do your study in complete isolation if you chose to, but it's best to speak to people, get their response to what you're actually doing. They might have suggestions on where your field of study is going in general, and it would inform your study greatly if you listened to these people and understood what the community is doing.
And did you guys, moving on to a bit something different, did you get an opportunity? You said you did some demonstrating. Did you get any opportunity to do some teaching?
No, I have not yet.
You haven't? But you did demonstrating, right?
Yes.
So how is that different?
I think demonstrating, you basically help the professor give some of the classes. I think teaching, you are the one leading the course as well.
So you were supporting somebody delivering
Yes.
delivering the teaching. Great. And you, Robin?
Yes, I have had the opportunity to teach, but not at this university. The opportunity came up at a previous place I'd studied. They needed a temporary teacher, so I discussed it with my supervisor here, and he was happy with me to take on that responsibility. So that was just a temporary contract for about 3 months.
Do you enjoy that?
Yes, I'd taught at the institution before, and it was the same class. So.
I guess I've also had some experience with teaching, and it was a really nice opportunity given by the group at Drexel University, because the two-dimensional material that I'm working with, called Maxine's, was developed at Philadelphia at Drexel University in 2011. They're some of the leading researchers in the field, so they organize kind of like now it happens twice a year, but the first one was, I think, a year and a half ago. And this is a worldwide course taught virtually, and I was the instructor for the optical properties of the nanomaterial. So
did you enjoy that?
I did, and it's happening again in February, so I'm going to be a full week working there.
So there's opportunities also. You just keep your eyes open for, you can teach outside of the university where you're studying as well, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So tell me, what is the one thing, if you were to have a hierarchy of the things you love, what is the one thing that you love the most about doing a PhD?
I like the flexibility. It's not really a 9-to-5 job. Yes, you've got expectations to produce work, but you can do it at sort of any time of the day if you want to.
I feel like definitely the flexibility for me as well is the fact that you feel like it's your own project. So you kind of like, you decide how much time you spend on it, and the results are, the good results in science in my case are direct effect from how much time I spend on it and how much I read. So it's kind of like really up to you, not really up to anyone else.
Excellent. And if I flip the question, what is the one thing you dislike the most? So trying to be honest here to people that are watching this video. What is the one thing that you would say, I don't like that very much, or the thing that you dislike the most about doing a PhD?
I think for me would be that because of the flexibility as well, sometimes you spend too much time working on it. Okay. And there might be some weekends that don't feel like weekends because it's up to you how much you work. So I think also having some like 8-to-5 job, or if you look at it that way, it could help kind of like being more structured with your week.
Okay, so Robin, what is the thing you might dislike the most about a PhD?
I think you do feel pressured at times to produce results from your study, and sometimes things aren't going very well and you're not maybe making enough progress, but you still have to meet with your supervisors and explain why things aren't going well. That's perhaps the worst part of it, that you have to admit sometimes it's not going well, you feel under pressure, you don't understand what to do next, and that's maybe the difficulty I find.
So last but not least, if you had a friend who's thinking about doing a PhD, what advice would you give them before they even start applying?
Like if they have decided to do a PhD?
Yeah, they're thinking about doing it. What do you want to tell them?
I would first tell them why they want to do it, to think about why, and if they have been exposed to research before, because I think being exposed to research before, it gives you a hint of what could it be like to do a PhD. And then I would definitely encourage them, because so far I've really enjoyed it. So.
Brilliant, thank you. Robin?
Yes, I did a research master's prior to the PhD, so I feel that was a reasonable introduction to doing your own projects on a research project. But I think they do need to understand that the project is going to work because they'll put the effort in. Nobody else is going to do it for you. It's all on your shoulders. And 3 years doesn't seem a long time, but it's a long time to work on your own project and try and make it work.
Brilliant. Well, guys, you have been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.